Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Paulitics Show. Today, I have a very, very special guest with us, Congressional Candidate Russ Cirincione.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Of course, anytime, especially that you're a future constituent. So,
Absolutely. So, who are you? Tell me a little about yourself.
I'm 33 years old and a millennial generation, right? I'm a father, and I live in Old Bridge, New Jersey. I went to Seton Hall Law School and undergrad, and New Jersey has always been where my heart's been. But, for the past 4.5 years, I've been really lucky that I work for state government, New York state government. And as a attorney there, I'm actually, look, don't hold it against me that I'm an attorney, okay? I'm an attorney for the people. And I've drafted laws. One of them became law last year in 2019, where it protects seniors and low-income or fixed-income people who live in manufactured homes. It gives them new rights to organize their communities and actually own the parks that their homes sit on. Most of the time, they rent the lots, but now they have the chance to get special financing through New York State for owning the park as a cooperative. So it's really a democratic process where they would get to make decisions about their parks. But and now I'm running for Congress in New Jersey's 6th District, in Middlesex and Monmouth counties. And, I've always been really involved and very aware of what goes on in the political landscape. And I'm really super happy that we met through pretty much social media, I think, right, through Reddit, and that we've connected.
Yeah, so not being an elected official, already having, some legislative experience in helping draft that bill, that's phenomenal. But, you're running in New Jersey against incumbent Frank Pallone. Was there a moment in particular that made you say, he's got to go?
I remember the moment very clearly, and that's when the House passed the resolution for a Green New Deal. And it was a simple resolution, really, declaring what the Congress should be doing and focusing on, what our nation should be focusing on. And when the Green New Deal resolution came out, it gave our generations and humanity really a glimmer of hope. But the current representative, who represents a 37-mile shoreline district, immediately said it was impossible, that he didn't support it. At that moment in time, I knew that he was one of the greatest threats to my son's future. And I decided that we need a representative that will demand that we go where we have to go in the future, by creating the careers of the future, by cleaning up our world, and really taking the fossil fuel industries head on to save our planet and our Jersey Shore here. So I decided to run when our current representative failed in his leadership.
So often the Green New Deal gets conflated with costing this tremendous, tremendous price. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Right, everybody brings up the price tag whenever we talk about policies that benefit the people. The Green New Deal really is an economic stimulus package. It's projected to create 20 million jobs in this country. And we need the jobs right now, especially when we're seeing massive layoffs due to Corona. The Green New Deal's price tag is so long because we've delayed action for decades. The fossil fuel companies knew about the environmental disaster on the horizon for over 50 years. There's an Exxon report about the climate crisis that we're experiencing now, dated in the 1980s. So they knew about this, and we've delayed action for so long that, of course, the price tag is us picking up the tab from decades of inaction and failed leadership. So some people will bring up the price tag. Okay, what is the price of a clean and beautiful planet that we can secure for our families? To me, that's priceless. And when you look at how much we spent on the wars in the Middle East and overseas over the past 20 years, it's not even close. It's a similar price tag over 10 years, but we're going to be creating millions of jobs in the process, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of permanent New Jersey careers in this country that are good wages, great benefits, and union representation. And really the best part about it, I think, is that our districts and every district across the country, we're going to be able to get together and plan out what kind of energy projects we want to see for the future. And I know that New Jersey is particularly well suited for offshore wind. And we can have these offshore wind farms up and down the coastlines that each create at least 5,000 jobs in New Jersey, and they're community jobs. So this is really an economic stimulus package. And over time, we'll save the planet. We'll have clear, crisp, fresh mountain air everywhere. We'll have pure water. We'll clean up our beaches, our oceans. And to me, I don't think that you can really put a price on that. That's everything to me.
So Frank Pallone has supported the Paris Climate Accords, something that President Trump withdrew from in his first year of office.
Mm-hmm.
So isn't that enough?
It's actually not enough. The Paris Accords at this point are outdated for the crisis that we see at hand. New Jersey has already seen 1.5 feet of sea level rise. Our state's already gotten 2 degrees warmer on average, which is the point of no return, which scientists say that if our entire globe goes to 2 degrees Celsius, 2 degrees Fahrenheit increase, we may never be able to get back. And the Paris Accords are certainly not enough, because even during the Obama years, we weren't on track to hit the goals of the Paris Accord either. So we have to really update our environmental policies based on the facts, based on what we're experiencing now. And we're even seeing that the climate catastrophe is accelerating at paces that we didn't expect. Right now, our polar ice caps are melting at levels that we didn't predict until the year 2070. We only have until 2030 to limit our carbon emissions. And now this is from a new study that was done in 2018 that really updated where we have to be for the future. And the Paris Accord does not go far enough because it's non-binding. It doesn't require other countries to take the same steps that we are. And we have to have a Green New Deal.
Okay. So why do you think Frank Pallone does not support the Green New Deal?
Well, we know exactly why. It's because he takes millions of dollars over the course of his career from fossil fuel companies, including the company that built the Keystone XL pipeline, including oil companies, PSE&G, Duke Energy, that are really responsible for the state of affairs we have today. They're responsible for the environmental destruction that we've seen today. And it's not only the fossil fuel companies, it's also the lobbyists that represent them. So he takes millions of dollars over the course of his career from fossil fuel companies, and therefore he will never do what it takes to protect our American people from these fossil fuel companies.
So, on your website, on your policy position page, you have a position called Modernizing Democracy. Is part of this modernization of democracy include, what does that include?
So it's really an acknowledgement that a lot of our government and a lot of our policies are outdated. Like, for instance, I think today, actually, Congress finally authorized remote work for themselves, right? For the past 2 months, they haven't been able to work remotely. They have to be in the House chamber. So that's one example of how outdated our systems have become. And this is a step in the right direction, obviously, but we have to do more than that. And really, I want to see our election systems being completely and totally secure, updated to make it very easy to do, and really encourage every American to vote every single time. We know that vote by mail works. We've just proven that it does in New Jersey. New Brunswick had a Board of Election vote that's just up this week, that we've seen the highest turnout ever. We need vote by mail that's modern. So, so for instance, in Oregon, they have a vote by mail system for the past 20 years. And when you actually deposit your vote, there's a text message or an email sent to you confirming that it was received. And then when the vote's counted, the same thing happens. That's a modern democratic process. I think we have to also secure our election systems, right? We have scenarios where these electronic voting machines are made by third parties with corporations that we don't really know anything about the software that they use. We can't investigate if they're actually secure. We need a paper trail ballots, and we need to restore the Voting Rights Act, so that no state can eliminate or close polling stations. And honestly, there's much that we have to do to modernize our democracy. We could talk for hours about it, but I want the American public and our American government to really enter the 21st century.
Okay. So I think, at least in my view, part of entering that 21st century is catching up to the rest of the industrialized world when it comes to things like healthcare policy.
True.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Updating healthcare policy, yes. When you look at every other modern industrialized nation in the world has a public service, nonprofit, single-payer type health insurance system that guarantees healthcare as a right to every single individual in their countries. And they've switched to a not-for-profit model that's focused on healing people, getting people better, making sure everyone can go to a doctor, a hospital, get everything they need to be healthy. And the only country in the world that doesn't do that is the United States of America. We have a for-profit health insurance system where these insurance monopolies dominate the system and decide for us Americans what access we get, what health care we can get, how much we pay for our prescriptions, what doctors we can see, what hospital we can go to. They make all of those decisions in their own benefit, just to make a buck. They deny people the right to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness when they cancel insurances on sick people, they overcharge us. When you look at how much we pay, actually, we pay twice as much than any other country per person. And it's really unjust and unfair to me that tens of thousands of people die every year because they can't afford it. And we're supposed to be the best country on the planet. I think part of being the best country on the planet is guaranteeing healthcare to everyone, because we all need it. We don't know when we're going to need it, because at any point in time we can get sick or injured and need a full-scale operation. And it's about damn time that we stop letting these middlemen mafia exploit us and extort us at every turn. So we have to guarantee healthcare with a single-payer system. It's efficient, it's effective, and it's truly universal. That will guarantee it to everybody.
So, I have to ask the question, because I see Bernie Sanders behind you in the background, and to anyone that's ever, and to anyone who's ever watched a Democratic debate, whether it be 2016 or 2020, he's always asked, how will you pay for it?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you, how are we going to pay for it?
How are we going to pay for it? So that's a good question, a great question. So under every single factual study, under every single analysis, we've seen that switching to a not-for-profit healthcare system actually will save us trillions and trillions of dollars every single year. Trillions of dollars. And even by the most conservative estimates, I believe it's $4 trillion over the course of a decade. Look, I mean, coronavirus right now has been putting enormous pressure on our health insurance system right now. So the insurance companies are already saying that there may be a 20% increase in our premiums next year because of it. So We are seeing inflation in health insurance right now in the private model that we would just not have under a Medicare for all system. So how do we pay for it? We're going to save trillions of dollars. In New Jersey specifically, in our district, actually, we pay the 5th highest in the entire country for our health insurance. And I keep trying to understand why we pay so much more. And the only thing I can think of is because New Jersey, for the most part, is a high income state. And the insurance companies know that we can pay more for it, so they extract more from us. They're ripping us off. They're ripping us off left and right. We're going to pay for it by becoming an efficient system. Medicare for all would be 30% more efficient. We're going to, instead of lining the pockets of CEOs and big shareholders, we're going to be investing that money in the system and making it better for everyone and healing people. And it pays for itself over decades.
So I think you don't need to know this, but I feel like the audience does, that your opponent does not support Medicare for all. Again, so similar to the Green New Deal, I have to ask, why is this? Why do you think?
Well, again, it's just so disappointing that he doesn't, because it's very popular here in our district. And we know why he doesn't, because last cycle, in the 2018 cycle, 40% of all of his donations came from insurance lobbyists and insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies. So he's taking this big money from these companies, not because they like him, although I think he's an okay guy. He's taking this money, he's getting this money because they know that he will never support Medicare for all. So again, the big money dominates politics. Everyone knows that about American government. The big money dominates. And he's been taking these donations from these companies that never want Medicare for all.
Now, right on your website, before you even go to your policy platform, before you even go to like the About Me section, there's a pledge that you take on your website. And I believe it says no corporate PAC money. Knowing that this is going to be an uphill battle for you because the incumbent does take PAC money, big bundles and stuff like that. Why did you decide to do this knowing it's going to be an uphill battle?
It's either the money or the people. Every representative has a choice. Do they want to represent big money, corporate money, lobbyist money, or do they want to represent the people? And day in and day out, every day of my career, I choose the people, because that's what public service is about. I'll never take a dime of corporate money, never take a dime of lobbyist money for my entire career, because I believe that taking that money is political malpractice. It's dishonest to our people here in our district, the 6th district of Middlesex and Monmouth. So I'm 100% grassroots, only powered by people, only powered by small dollar donations. And to me, that makes it, that gives me motivation to fight even harder, because there's so many people that have chipped in a few bucks that really want to see a true representative of the people. So I'll never take that money, because I'm going to be loyal to everyone here in our district.
Okay, so I just want to transfer over to talking about our current crisis at hand, being this pandemic, the coronavirus. And it's on every news station, but something that hasn't necessarily been talked about recently is the other day, the New York Times put out an article saying that by the end of this year, 40% of all small businesses would be closing permanently. How do we go about stopping that from happening? How do we revitalize small business, which is the backbone of this nation?
Right, it's the backbone of this nation, and especially New Jersey. I think 99% of businesses in New Jersey are small businesses, believe it or not. And we have to keep those small businesses running right now. And the way we do that, right, we can do that in many ways. Well, we have to make sure that the consumers are there for these small businesses, right? So we have to be putting cash in people's pockets. We need a $2,000 a month universal basic income for everyone, per person. that's one way that we can do it. Another way, we have to make sure that we have to protect small businesses by breaking up monopolies in this country. We have to protect small businesses to closing the loopholes that only benefit multinational corporations and really give them an unfair advantage against small businesses. Because you're right, small businesses are the backbone of New Jersey and this nation.
So another thing about small business in general, back in 2015, Frank Pallone supported a $15 minimum wage. Whether or not he still does, I am not quite sure. I'm assuming he still does. But you take the living wage argument a step further. Can you please explain?
Absolutely, yeah. So I call it a living wage because when the minimum wage was actually first enacted, its purpose was to set a floor for everyone. So everyone who worked a full-time job, that one job would be enough. And one job really should be enough to support a family. And in my opinion, we do that by raising the floor for everyone. And in New Jersey, we're an expensive state to live in. So the average minimum wage that you have to make to afford a two-bedroom apartment in New Jersey is $24 an hour. I really believe that the minimum wage should be a living wage. One job should be enough, and it should be $20 an hour. Because if we want to fulfill the original promise of the minimum wage, we have to make sure that people who are working full-time can, participate in the economy, can afford a house, can afford to take care of their family and put food on the table. So New Jersey is slated to go to $15 an hour until in 2024. And even by then, it's not enough, right? 4 years from now, hardworking Americans, there's 100,000 actually people who work on the minimum wage in this district. They'll finally be getting a raise. But we have to make it a living wage in this country, adjusted, by cost of living in each area. And since the minimum wage's inception, businesses have argued that it will hurt their business. But the reality is, the facts show that raising the minimum wage puts more money in people's pockets so they could spend at small businesses. Every single person who works on minimum wage, they'll be going out to restaurants more, they'll be buying more from local businesses. And there's actually a factual study done, a scientific study done in New York City, came out this last year. They raised the minimum wage, and every single small business has pretty much reported a booming business, an increase in business. So when you look at the facts, increasing the minimum wage is actually an injection into the small businesses that make the backbone of our economy. And it's also about economic justice, because we dedicate our lives to corporations that really don't pay us a fair share.
So a lot of people would say that you're a radical. And by extension, there are going to be Republicans in Congress when you get there. Whether or not you guys are going to agree or disagree on every issue, that's not going to happen. But how do you plan on working with those Republicans who are going to vote against your bills? How are you going to vote against? How are you going to work with those blue dog Democrats that you're going to have to work with?
Well, one thing I've learned is at a negotiation table, you go in with more than your strongest ask. You have to ask for, if you're not demanding what you want, you'll never get it. So we have to demand what we want to see done. And people calling me a radical, to me, I don't buy that argument, right? In this district, over 75% of people agree with a Green New Deal. 70% of people agree with Medicare for all. 90% of people believe with anti-corruption provisions. So if being on the side of the people is radical, then please call me a radical by all means. But I'm on the side of what the people want. And, working with Republicans, look, I'm going to be demanding the best for our district here, the best for New Jersey, the best for America, and we should accept no excuses. Republicans can make all the excuses they want, but if they're not getting to work for the people, we're going to make sure that people in their districts know about it. We're going to be campaigning in their districts. We're going to be on national TV talking about how much of a disservice they're doing to the people of their districts. And we're going to take the fight to their doorsteps, because if there's one thing that I want to do is beat Republicans everywhere, and not only in New Jersey, everywhere. I want to make the Republican Party a thing of the past.
So, we're talking about working with Republicans, but, a lot of people would say that a lot of work doesn't happen in Congress anymore, mainly because of the allocation to the presidency and because they don't have a reason to legislate because they're getting paid by donors and things of that sort not to legislate. But for instance, recently, over the course of his presidency, Donald Trump has taken Department of Defense funds and put it towards his wall. Congress hasn't done much in response to this. And generally, the checks and balances of Congress that were once there are missing. The War Powers Act, authorization of war, and trade deals are now in the hands of the president. What would you do? What do you advocate for to reclaim those powers, if we should reclaim those powers?
Yes, we should reclaim those powers. It's actually a violation of the president's duty by disobeying Congress. Congress has the power of the purse, and only through congressional authority can specific items be funded. And he actually is violating his constitutional duty, his oath of office, to fairly execute the laws, right? Because the president is the executive, the executor of whatever the legislative branch does. So that's actually a grounds for impeachment, to be quite honest. And that's why I really supported a full impeachment inquiry since January of 2019, at least. And we have to hold this president accountable. We have to hold him and his administration accountable to the rule of law. We need a strong Congress. We need strong Democrats in the House of Representatives that will do this duty of checks and balances and hold every administration accountable to our Constitution. And part of that is reclaiming congressional constitutional power to declare war. Only does Congress have the constitutional authority to declare war, yet we've been at war for over 20 years. We've been at war. There actually, if you look at American history, there are very few years where America was at peace. We want to go back to peace, true peace. And the way we do that is we have to take the authority to declare war back into the hands of Congress, because that's what the Constitution gives. That's who the Constitution gives the power to. Really, what this is about is maintaining the checks and balances, like you mentioned, which are so important for the efficient government.
So you brought up impeachment. Now, arguably, the articles of impeachment brought up in this Congress were not the strongest articles to impeach him on. It could be his violation of the War Powers Act. It could be any number of different violations. But they charged him on Russian collusion and various things related to that. How would have you voted?
I mean, I would have obviously voted for that, yes, but I would have been pushing the entire time for an expanded inquiry. As a government attorney, you learn really early on that you have to bring every single case that you have in your complaints, against the plaintiffs. So if you don't bring your case, then you're not going to be able to get any remedy, right? So we needed a very expansive and inclusive impeachment inquiry to really get to the bottom of his self-dealing. For instance, he charged the Secret Service over $20 million, I think, to stay at his own hotels, to rent golf carts at his golf resorts so they could follow him around and protect him. And he's really personally benefiting from his office, which is unconstitutional and is probably the strongest case for impeachment against this president, because the people do not take corruption very, very nicely. If we expose his corruption, we may have been able to pressure the Senate enough to actually impeach him.
Okay. This is going to be a little bit of a change in topics, but I want to talk a little bit about the COVID-19 in particular, again, and the response of the stimulus package and the CARES Act, because I know you also called for a $2,000 a month UBI, but I know you also call for a federal jobs guarantee.
Mhm.
Why both?
Well, our goal is to really eliminate poverty and make sure that every single American is guaranteed economic rights, basic economic rights. And we exist in a market system, market-based system. And in order to survive in that system, you need money. You have to pay for food, shelter, and clothes, and all of your necessities in life. And a UBI will guarantee that to every single American. And a federal jobs guarantee would provide the opportunity for every American uh, to do the good work that we need done in our communities. So our communities could actually directly hire through a federal grant program people to work in their communities. So I know in several townships in this district, we need things like new schools, new community centers, new post offices, and we have to pay people to do that work for us. So the federal government will fully fund that with the federal jobs guarantee. Honestly, like even things like paving potholes, New Jersey doesn't have to be completely and solely responsible. The federal government can hire people to do that. We want to see a high-speed rail in our country that will get us from city to city very quickly. We want to see green, renewable transportation like buses and cars. We can have a federal jobs guarantee for that. It's really about figuring out like what kind of work we have to do and fulfilling that demand. Both of those will guarantee everyone a job and guarantee that everybody could have the basic necessities of life. So I think that we could also eliminate poverty in this country as well, because I don't think anyone should ever be on the streets.
So your agenda is largely supported by younger people in this country. And a typical complaint that I hear from younger people is that they're frustrated when they look at their paychecks. And they're frustrated when they look at Social Security in particular. They're not mad because the checks and the money that's being deducted from their paycheck is going to retirees and older Americans, but because Social Security is not going to be there for them when they grow old. Other welfare programs aren't going to be there for them when they grow older. What's the
Mhm.
solution to this?
Well, I think Social Security is going to be around. It's been around for 80 plus years, and it's by far one of the most popular American programs of all time. But we have to make sure that it's properly funded. Right now, if everybody's shipping into Social Security, but if you make more than $125,000, your income above 125K doesn't go into Social Security at all. So we can lift that cap and remove it so that everyone's paying their fair share for Social Security. And also we have to guarantee that it will always be there. And I also want to expand Social Security benefits, right? Because what is Social Security about? It's about securing a dignified retirement. It's about guaranteeing that our golden years are secure and we have what we need to get by. Because honestly, not many seniors can afford to live on the $14,000 that Social Security pays out every year. We have seniors living in poverty today, and to me, that's unfair. That's a disservice to our seniors.
You know, another question held by younger communities has to do with prison reform and drug policy, legalizing marijuana, decriminalizing other substances. What is your take on the general prison crisis in this country, as well as potentially the legalization of marijuana and other substances?
So I'll go to the second part first. So we have to legalize marijuana, and we have to expunge all convictions, release anyone who's in prison for possession and nonviolent crime, nonviolent marijuana possession. And we have to actually start treating people with drug addictions as human beings. We have to start treating them as people with an illness and guaranteeing health insurance to them, addiction recovery services. And we also have to stop treating them like criminals, because look, a lot of these drugs are purposefully made to be addictive. And a lot of people wind up actually being prescribed a painkiller for an injury and becoming addicted to that. So they're highly addictive, and we have to make sure that everyone has the mental health care that they need. So I want to decriminalize all drugs as well. Decriminalization means that you won't be thrown in jail if you do use a drug, but you will be able to get addiction treatment services. And to get to our prison industrial complex, really is what it is. We have in New Jersey at least 3 ICE detention centers that are for profit, run by corporations that are for profit. And what they do is they treat criminals as they treat whoever's in their jails as subhuman, and they take all of the money from our government. And to me, that's unfair. We have to abolish these for-profit prisons. No company should make a profit from putting people in jail, because what happens is, as they make those profits, they then lobby governments for harsher criminal penalties. And that's resulted in an unjust criminal justice system where we have more black and brown bodies in there than anywhere else. And we have more people in prison than any other country on the planet. And to me, we have to balance our criminal justice system with a desire for punishment and being really strong-handed with a more of a gear towards rehabilitation of that person back into society. So I think we have to really reevaluate our criminal justice system and making it more compassionate towards rehabilitation, and realizing that, look, people make mistakes, but we can help them get better to be good people in our society. We have to, and really what we have to do is abolish ICE. It's become a organization that's overstepped its bounds. It's arrested over 1,400 American citizens because they racially profiled American citizens and denied them their rights. And we actually just saw there's actually a new development where ICE was really violating the laws when pursuing sex trafficking. But what we have to do, like I said before, is really rethink our criminal justice system.
So I do have one last question, and it has to do with local New Jersey politics. So recently, a senator from New Jersey's 13th Congressional District, Declan O'Scallion, called for rebellion against the stay-at-home orders. New Jersey has some of the more strict stay-at-home orders in the country, along with New York and Connecticut. Are we on the right track to reopening?
So personally, I don't think we should fully reopen until there's a vaccine developed that's widely available, because what we're seeing in other countries that open too early, or states that have opened too early, is a spike in resurgence of COVID. I think Governor Murphy took the right approach with giving us a stay-at-home order, because we're the second hardest hit state in the whole entire country, and our cases are spiking. So we need to protect our people here, and the best way to do that is to stay at home. But, unfortunately, not everyone can stay at home. I think that Governor Murphy is doing a great job. And I mean, yesterday he announced that beaches will be reopening as long as people are socially distancing. Small businesses and non-essential businesses can now provide curbside pickup. So I think that he's really adapting to the crisis the way that it should be, because this is a difficult situation for any leader right now. But I think he's shown the ability to adapt. I think it would be terrible to reopen too early and see a spike in cases. So we have to trust the science, we have to trust the facts, and we have to protect our New Jerseyan people here. So we should definitely be very careful about when we do reopen.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Is there anything you want to say?
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. And of course, For anyone that lives in the district or anyone that's watching this, my website is Russ for Us 2020, and it's RUSSFORUS 2020. And we're looking for volunteers. We're looking for, since we're grassroots, if anyone can make a donation for every $10, we can call another 50 people in this district. And we're really building a movement here. This is not particularly about getting me elected. This is about really true substantive change for our future generations. And we need everybody to get involved. So if you can volunteer for a few hours a month or a week, that would be really helpful. But Paul, I thank you for having me. This is really great. And I'm super excited to see your show progress and get bigger and stronger. And I'll recommend some new people to interview too.
I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on.
Anytime.